Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all the news from Star Citizen over the past week. My name is Mac, so let's get on with it. This week we take a look at the hangars making their first appearance in the upcoming rest stops. We get an insight into what CIG are doing to reduce CPU costs and boost performance, plus news on scanning, ship-to-ship docking and blind quantum jumping. So, as many of you may have heard already, on the 21st of April, the third annual BrittertonCon event will be taking place. This is a fan-organised event happening at the Radisson Blu Hotel at Manchester Airport starting around 10 AM in the morning. Expect to see developers like Erin Roberts and Brian Chambers, plus many more from the Manchester studio. If you can attend, do follow the link below to get your tickets bought or check out the website. If you can't, then make sure you follow the link to BrittertonCon's Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/BrittertonCon. Myself and Mr. Miserable G will be hosting the official BrittertonCon live stream on the day, so make sure you join in. This will cover the whole event and all the happenings, plus they'll expect to see some cool giveaways as well. After the event, there will be a Bar Citizen. Details are on the website regarding that one. But if anyone is around on the Friday the 20th of April, we have arranged a Bar Citizen at the Wilmslow Brewhouse and Kitchen, starting around 6 PM. And if it's anything like last year, expect to see a great turnout. It's always a great time hanging out with backers. There's many devs come down and other content creators. So if you can get there, please do so. I do hope to live stream some of the events from my phone as well, provided the network's okay. So make sure you follow me on Twitch. The link's below as well. Hope to see you all there. I am very excited. So as usual, starting with calling all devs. First question is, how will explorers go to far off places without being able to blind quantum jump? And they say they do want us to blind quantum jump. The ships are only limited by the quantum drive, which is why bigger ships will allow us to go further. They're not sure when they're going to allow it, but it is on the cards. Next question is, will we have radios or jukeboxes in our spaceships? They didn't answer that question, but they are looking to introduce cockpit flare very soon. Items will basically attach via item ports like we see with weapons and components. We will see bobbleheads, that's definitely on the cards. And other small items towards the end of the year for the cockpit, and then they will expand to the rest of the ship after that one. Next question is regarding ship-to-ship and ship-to-station docking. What's happening with those? Now, they said they are both in the plans. They're just on the back burner at the moment. They need this to allow us to transport crew and cargo between them, and there was a while that we didn't know if it was coming or not, and this was due to the Cutlass having their docking collars removed, but this was just because it was taking up too much important space with it being on the floor. They did say they need to solve some issues in terms of like how which vehicles can dock together and which cannot or which shouldn't, but once they get that sorted, we'll start seeing more on that. The next question is very important and quite a good one. Is to do with the radar and scanning and what's the plan with this. It's not going to be a mini-game as such. The US vehicle team is working on this. You will basically put out a ping, and this can either be a 360 ping or a more focused ping, which is to a certain direction, giving you a much longer range. They're getting rid of this golf swing mechanic, which we saw. That was just a test. It wasn't really ever going to be a final thing. But they're giving more control using the radar MFDs, allowing you to determine the cone and the strength of the ping. First iteration, you will initially ping out using the radar. You'll get a low amount of information, maybe just a blob on the radar of something of interest. Then you will be able to focus that ping more closely to that target and send out more of a concentrated ping, and it will start to reveal more information. When you get close enough or within scanning distance, you'll then be able to scan more thoroughly and eventually maybe finding out the owner, the faction it belongs to, the cargo, the ship type, the armament, the state of it, whether it's damaged or not, and other things. They also will be populating the world with mining assets and other points of interest, not just ships. So if you in a space and you scan something, you can go and reveal it and then go and scan it further to see what sort of minerals it contains. They did say they're looking to get the first tier of scanning into 3.2, so hopefully by June we'll have something to play with. So final question for calling all devs, when can we get more rounded multi-crew gameplay experience, like co-pilot working on systems and so forth? Now this is apparently in a big backlog of things they need. They like the idea of handing players controls of certain systems, but there's a big list of stuff that they want to get on with in order to make this work, which will take a bit of time, but they do now have a European vehicle team which will be looking into it, so there's more people working on it, so he said it will just come soon, TM. Anyway, that was calling all devs, guys. Let me know your thoughts. So Around the Verse kicked off with the UK studio update. For environments, the work continues on the next round of space stations, starting with the rest stop, which are created semi-procedurally. Very easy to populate the persistent universe very quickly as well, with them being semi-procedural. They're going to have 3 main locations for rest stops. You've got the exterior, which needs to be recognised easily so we can determine what sort of station it is. Hangars, which is going to be first used in rest stops, which look very, very cool. These are huge. Cannot wait to be flying in and out of hangars. This also helps with taking the ships away and spawning them so they're not just popping onto landing pads. Then it's the interiors, and they're using the layout tool so they can auto-generate large numbers of layouts, keeping the visual consistency, but ultimately having a wide variety of variation, so much quicker, much easily. In terms of props, they have received improvements which allows props to not only maintain the fidelity but also the functionality, so being able to create destructible props that can mesh and swap, and also update the environment like lighting, as we've seen in the example. I do love how the props here not only change the lighting, but if they're shot, they act damage and give off a strobing effect, rather than just having on and off. Very, very nice. Most games just do the on and off. They're not being implemented yet, but the settings and for the foundations for future releases are there. There's a new set of low-tech medical props which are being built along with the new dressing. They're planned to be used throughout the PU as common medical elements. They've also worked on sub-items which will be used to customize the performance of ship components, so components within components. They want to ensure that when the feature comes online, there's a wide selection of visuals to support it as well. Now, the mission team is replacing the AI with the new subsumption behavior. The focus is on balance and implementing wild lines so the AI respond appropriately to your actions. This goes towards personalizing each player's experience, as the AI will communicate with players differently depending on their relationship and history, which is very cool. So they'll kind of remember who you are. As the AI develop, they will address the Vandal and the Pirate Swarm game modes within Arena Commander. They want the rebalance to deliver more satisfaction. They're also prototyping a scramble event, which is a race event which can be sort of worked in space or planet side. Kind of death races, battling to collect procedurally generated checkpoints. They've got an upcoming recording session planned to supply this game mode, which sounds quite fun. So in the middle of nowhere, you could probably meet someone and start up a procedural race, which will have random checkpoints popping up, and you've just got to go through them quickly, but with weapons allowed. They're also rebalancing the reputation progression system. It's currently too easy to get a negative rating, so they're going to work that out so it doesn't happen too much. Now, the next section is to do with CPU fixes, very important, and the UI team are researching ways to improve the performance by analysing where the CPU is spending too much. Optimizing the vitals on the visor has dramatically reduced CPU cost, which without affecting visuals, which is excellent news. The graphics team are also working on major performance savings while working on characters. They're working on 2 new shader effects for the render-to-texture system. The first is the edge highlighting effects for ship targeting, and the second is a drop shadow to help the icon stand out more. They're improving the GPU particle system as well, implementing techniques to provide maximum impact. It creates better and cheaper electrical and plasma effects. Great for the coil that we saw in the Squadron 42 demo, interiors, and the EMP. Now, tech design are finalising 3.1 work. They're implementing and tuning the new weapons, plus supporting the conversion to Weapon 2.0. They're balancing the distortion, the countermeasures, the flight balance, the landing turbulence in atmosphere, and the shields, bringing the setback and regen rates in more akin to what they should be. They're also working on new ship concepts, which will be revealed throughout the year on ship shape segments, which I don't know what they could be, but it sounds exciting. The ship art team are set out on the Aegis Hammerhead interior, with the exception of the crew dorm and kitchen area. They're just currently having the cargo bay and bridge in a detailing pass, and it does look like it's coming along very nicely. The Eclipse is back in full production as well. The focus is on the exterior. They're just reinforcing the stealthy appearance, enhancing the materials and making sure that all the parts are moving correctly as they should do. The weapon audio system has undergone refactoring. Work has begun on distance sounds, amongst other things. You can listen to a bit of that now. The audio team took part in a sound effects recording session focusing on the vibrating of metal or metallic objects. This will be used on ships for various areas, things like atmospheric entry and strong gravitational fields and so on and so forth. Highly inspired by Interstellar's audio. The gameplay story team are organising all the scenes to get them in-game and up to standard, and we're not talking about Squadron 42 here. The progress is made on R&D for the Vandal face rig and for the female rigs in Maya, saving a lot of time in the future with not having to reanimate everything. The facial animation team is also finalising animations for shopkeepers, bartenders and mission givers in the PU, and it looks like we saw the race mission giver here, who I expect is at Grim Hex. I'll let you have a look at him for a couple of secs.
You doing all right? Everything good? Make an uncertain world a little more certain. That's all I can say till I know if you're in or not. Hurry and get to your ship. I'll be in touch before the race.
Anyway, the main focus for the ATV this week was the Mobiglass. There's lots of changes coming from 3.0 to 3.1 for the Mobiglass. They no longer use the accordion-style menu, which required way too much clicking. And they wanted to fill the screen as well so they can add more information. So now we have two separate left-hand columns to pick hard points and items that are available. Breathing actually made it really difficult to click properly. I don't know if you remember that, as your arm would move with your breathing, making it really difficult to click on the item you're trying to. They still want the Mobiglass to move to show that your character, how he's feeling. So if you do a lot of running, you'll move a bit more. But instead of the cursor moving, it only the UI does, and the cursor still has easy clickable uses. It does look a lot better, and I personally find it a lot easier to use, so I'm glad they've done that. They've also pushed other app layouts like the Vehicle Manager app and the Personal Manager app. They're going to reuse the same systems for the PU, the Star Marine, and for Arena Commander. Plus, they'll do the same thing for shopping kiosks. They just want to make it more intuitive for us. Soon, we'll be able to save player loadouts, both for Star Marine and the PU. And using a locker, you can then quickly swap between the loadouts. We can see on the Vehicle Manager app, you can pick a port on your ship and see all the items that are available for that, or they can switch it around so you can pick an item and see all the ports that are available for that. So we have a lot of choice there depending on what you prefer. The new VMA and PMA and Contracts Manager is coming up soon. They're going to make it a bit more streamlined. They want to look at the star map more as well, making it a bit more readable and usable. The Journal and other secondary apps need to have work as well. But the VMN and PMA, they want to improve the stat readout, giving us it's just basic information at the moment. They want to have more to be able to compare between items and weapons and so forth. Just bringing a bit more interactable features to it, making it a bit more visible. And they also want to improve the effects, so highlighting different focuses and the general feeling. There was a lot more said, but that's the gist of it. Anyway, that was ATV, guys. Let's move on. So Reverse the Verse this week was talking about props, going further in depth compared to what we had in ATV. We spoke to a couple of members of the prop team. They generally just make assets within the universe, so boxes, tables, chairs, forklifts, cranes, pretty much anything that is not a vehicle or a character. They've got a new tool now which allows them to have dynamic materials, plus lighting effects on their props, like what we saw around the verse, so lights flickering or rolling around on the floor. Basically, it has functionality within the asset as well, so that's kind of cool to have multiple parts of the prop. Another tool is to create a larger amount of assets in less time with less effort. They want a variety of items to be destructible or explosive. Also want items to make sense. They don't want a melon, if you're shooting it, to have wooden textures flying off it like we see in a lot of other games. It needs to make sense. They also spoke about subcomponents. Ship components, as we know, like coolers and ship generators and so forth, they all contain sub-items. Now these deteriorate over time, kind of a bit like fuses, but with abilities. Each sub-item or sub-component will have certain abilities, and depending on the size of the component that you are putting them into, this will determine how many sub-components can be attached. Each sub-component applies a different ability to the main component and allows you to modify and tweak and add more functionality to it and a lot more variety. It's going to be a part of the engineering mechanic, so if a system blows, you run down to the component, take out the damaged sub-component, and then either repair it or replace it and get that system back up and running again. They spoke about procedural food as well. You're not going to be able to fry an egg and see it change as it cooks. It's just the art tool they're talking about with procedural. The procedural software allows them to iterate and alternate the food fast and keeps it at the high fidelity. So it's more a case of just showing us how quickly they can make really high fidelity food types. One of the questions was to do with bobbleheads, which we've heard in Calling All Devs, and yes, they have committed to making bobbleheads. The next question is, what is the biggest and smallest props that you've worked on? The biggest is currently a crane, which is the tallest, really, and then things like pills, pens, and chopsticks. Those sort of things are generally the smallest. And then the final question I got out of this was, do you work on flora? And they say, no, that's handled by a dedicated foliage team in Frankfurt, which is actually quite cool. Anyway, a very short and sweet RTV. A lot of the questions were just basically how they do it or their favourite asset and stuff. I would rather have heard more about what we are going to get coming up and what they're currently working on, but there you go. Anyway, let's move on. So also this week, 3.1.1 was released and recalled due to a crash the desktop issue, but they have been resolved, so the patch is now available for everyone to download. This is mostly just hotfixes for the insurance and claim systems, but there are some nice little things in there too. Lawmaker's Guide to the Galaxy brought us the null system, plus the monthly studio report is now available. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. It really helps me out. Big thank you to all my patrons, as your monthly donations helps me to make videos like these, paying for software and hardware. Do follow the link below if you want to learn how to become a patron. Be sure to follow me over on Twitch and join us as we delve into the verse or just sit around chatting about the latest news. Follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with what I'm up to, and Instagram for the hell of it. My name is Mac. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.